So we're in our free listingattorney.com course. And this is where, when you become a member, that's free right now, you'll get my start every home sale in California with zero buyer agent compensation documented in writing. I'm going to show you the form and that it's in the membership area, then you'll be able to get it in a second. But let me explain why. I know that attorneys and real estate agents who have experience, their first thought is going to be, but every sale starts at zero BAC because we cannot put it into the MLS. And I grant everyone that. But I know the listing agent is going to be talking to the seller, because I am one. Every seller I've ever talked to is like, how much am I going to pay for commissions? And if they're sophisticated, they'll go, how much is your listing commission? How much are the buyer agent commissions? And I know you're going to talk about it. And as a listing agent who works at a franchise, or just for yourself, if you're a broker, you should know from reading all those class action suits that the moment you're talking about buyer agent commissions, you're doing what caused realtors to be sued for $1.6 billion. Now, are you commission fixing? It would depend on what you were talking about and how you were talking about it. But if a disgruntled buyer who feels like they paid too much and the price of the properties went down, or when the buyer, the plaintiff's attorneys start realizing what I've been talking about, that as a listing agent, you have no authority to license, you're not licensed to negotiate buyer agent compensation. You don't have the proper language. You cannot mitigate the risks of steering, compromising the fiduciary duty of the buyer's agent, price fixing, and offering inconsistent levels of buyer agent compensation. You can't mitigate against those things. That you're introducing risk to sellers every time you pay buyer agent compensation. When the plaintiff's attorneys figure that all out, you're going to wish that you had a form provided to you by your association that documented you started with zero buyer's agent commission. You don't have one of those forms yet. I think you're going to get one after people see this series. And that form's likely going to say, before you list a home with an agent, you should talk to an attorney about the risks of offering buyer agent compensation and the risks of working with realtors who are using our forms where we allow the buyer's agent to check a box and request buyer agent compensation. I think that will eventually come out. But right now, you're going to need one of those forms. You're going to wish that your seller came to my website, downloaded his form, signed it, and gave it to you. Because that way, even though you talked about it, it was agreed by you and the seller that you are starting with zero buyer agent compensation. You listed the property, and then based on market concerns or what the seller wanted to know, or because you worked with an attorney, they changed the posture with respect to buyer agent compensation. Because you're going to want to have a response if a buyer or buyer's agent comes up and says, are you working with buyer's agents? Or if we make an offer, will you make an offer? Your seller should know. I mean, you really, really should have a duty to tell your seller that you might want to consider broadcasting buyer agent compensation and go to the broker caravans and saying, if we get an offer in the next 30 days, we'll pay 3%. That you should probably have an open house that says, buyer agents welcome, we're offering 3%. Because smart buyers will say, oh, that's 3% for me, right? If you follow my 7-day max sale price, you might even see buyers competing against each other, bringing their offers up and reducing buyer agent commission consequently when they get close to fair market value. These are all things you should be saying. If we have an attorney on the team, I can help you sell for a higher net, and I can help mitigate the risks. But first, we should start with zero, because that will go a long way to blocking the easy, free money lawsuits. For the cost of a signature, you can protect against arguments about commission fixing when you discuss buyer agent commission with your seller. It's just super easy. Now, for attorneys, this is also, when discussing this form, it's also an opportunity for you to talk about the 4 levels or the 4 ways buyer agent commissions are being approached. There's start at zero and always stay at zero. And for the most risk-averse sellers, that might be the best way to go. For pricing, that's when a seller knows that their property is in a price range because they're in a subdivision, everyone knows what the price of the homes are worth, and they're not looking for max. I mean, they might, if they put it up on the MLS at a good price and you're getting showings, they might not have to pay buyer agent compensation. So they should start at zero, and they should consider the market, and they might be able to stay at zero the whole time. So that's one option. Therefore, no risk. Another option, especially if they're worried about being sued by protected groups, or they want to develop multiple offers, and they want to have showings and compress them all into a weekend and maybe have the buyers compete against each other in a transparent process that can lead to multiple offers the way realtors used to do things, then they might want to broadcast buyer agent compensation. They might want to understand that they need to work with an agent whose broker will let them do it. And it will help to have an attorney on the team to explain to the broker that, yes, we can do this. It helps in some ways. It will even help the broker in some ways. We can mitigate the risk. We've already documented we're starting at zero, and we're going to help you do this the right way. And really, if you're paying buyer agent compensation, there's risk. Broadcasting it really doesn't create new risk. In fact, it can mitigate some of the risks. So all these things you can talk about the realtor way. The realtor way is very passive, and the offers come in and they're like, oh, I can't really negotiate that 3%. If they do, I'd be practicing law with a license, so let's just pay it. But again, if you're agreeing to pay it, you should still, especially if you're paying the full amount, you should make the buyer waive their rights to sue you afterwards and acknowledge that the source of the funds is they're bringing to the table is being used to pay their agent to get around some of the problems mentioned in the class action suits and by the DOJ. So that's why for lawyers, this start at zero is a great form. Now, let me just say, inside my website where we talk about these things, this seller listing agent form is right here. Let me see. This isn't going to be the prettiest presentation, but if we preview it, you can see you join for free. The very first thing in the membership area is I explain a little bit and I allow you to download the form right here. Right? It's free for everyone. There's a little bit of training. It works for attorneys, works for sellers, I think. I haven't really thought about it from an agent's point of view, but it's free at listingattorney.com. /seller form, but you can access it from the front page at listingattorney.com. My name's John McConnin. That's the first. We've now talked about my first 3 modules here. Phase 2, we'll be doing modules for all of these inside the free course. They're just not done yet. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.